High school teacher Rick Latimer is going through tough times and often tries to drown his sorrow by drinking too much at a sports bar. His buddies make fun of him, calling him the lonely boy, but Rick takes it in stride, until the night his ex-wife shows up at the bar with the divorce lawyer who handled their case. Realizing she's in a new relationship, the already drunk Rick, in a fit of rage, grabs a baseball bat and attacks her lover. The man tries to hide in his car, but that doesn't stop Rick, who begins smashing the rival's vehicle. As a result of the altercation, there isn't a single intact window left in the lawyer's car. The man escapes injury only thanks to the bar's patrons, who rush out at the noise. Rick is taken away by the police, loudly announcing his profession along the way, something that surprises the officers. This incident leads to an unexpected promotion. The school board offers Rick an alternative he can't refuse. He is appointed principal of the most troubled school in the city, Brendale, located in the roughest part of town, where the staff long ago lost control, and principals rotate out before they can make a difference. Though Rick isn't thrilled about this sudden career boost, the higher-ups aren't interested in his protests and congratulate him on the new position. The next morning, after breakfasting on a makeshift drink made from leftovers in his fridge, Rick fires up his motorcycle and heads to Brendale High. Upon entering the neighborhood, home mostly to African American and Latino residents, he witnesses a street incident between boys of different races. One of them tries to scale a fence but gets stuck as a car rams him, leaving him hanging on the vehicle, entangled in the fence mesh. Sensing that things could turn deadly, Rick chases after the car. He quickly catches up, forcing the driver to stop, but the boy from the car lunges at the blonde troublemaker, and Rick has to hold them both back to keep them from stabbing each other. The rest of the group takes off, and Rick drags the captured pair into the school. Baffled by his assertiveness, the teachers show him to the principal's office. Rick immediately informs the boys that he intends to expel them from his school. However, the blonde boy, who introduces himself as White Zack, immediately says he won't stop carrying a knife because Victor has promised to kill him, and he's not planning to go down easy. Hearing this accusation, his rival Emil flies into another rage. Since he's part of Victor's gang and doesn't want Zack throwing around wild claims, Rick once again has to separate the two. At that moment, a teacher enters the office, along with security guard Jack Phillips, who plans to throw the boys out and at first doesn't even realize who this man is that's trying to restore order. Once he understands that Rick is the new principal and hears about the planned expulsions, the teacher explains that it's impossible to expel students from this school because they've already been kicked out of every other school in the city. As for the police, they don't care about this bunch. To them, school issues are just petty nuisances. As Jack escorts the troublemakers away, he offers to give Rick a tour of the school, strongly advising against walking the hallways alone. Coming to his senses, Rick accepts the offer and joins Jack on a walkthrough of his new domain. The guard explains that the student body is made up of kids from nearby, far from decent neighborhoods. As a result, the school is a hub of drug dealing, theft, muggings, and various forms of violence, often taking place in lieu of classes. Many of the students have repeated grades several times, which means the upper classes are filled with 19 and 20-year-olds. It's widely believed that a young black man named Victor Duncan runs the place. He's formed his own gang, controls the drug trade among teens, and believes he alone should decide how things are done. Bringing any kind of order to this school will be a colossal challenge for the new principal. After the tour, Jack walks Rick back to the office and again reminds him not to roam the school alone. Later, he mentions his intention to install a secure lock on Rick's office door, one that's tough to pick, unlike what the students are used to. Rick thanks the guard, and Jack remarks that he's curious what this pleasant white guy is doing in a place like this. Rick tries to lie, claiming he's always wanted to be in charge, but Jack notices the classifieds on Rick's desk and realizes the new principal would leave in a heartbeat if he found something else. Still, Jack admits that for some reason, he thinks things are going to be different at Brendale now. At that moment, the sound of a bouncing ball echoes from the hallway, and Jack explains that it's just a local kid named Arturo, who's being harassed by Victor's gang. Jack has taken it upon himself to make sure Arturo gets home safely. The guard heads out, and Rick peeks into the hallway, spotting a tall black teenager watching him from a distance. He immediately realizes that's Victor. Later, Rick pays a visit to his ex-wife, but she refuses to talk to him. She's tired of his irresponsibility, of the constant job losses, and of his inability to provide for their family. As it turns out, Rick only got the school job thanks to his father's connections, something he clearly doesn't appreciate. When she hears he's now the principal of a problem school, she doesn't even seem surprised. She just leaves, cutting the conversation short. Rick ends up back at his usual sports bar. But this time, the drinking doesn't help him forget or calm down. He rides over to the school and spends the entire night reviewing files on his students, starting with Victor. The next day, Rick notices a student named Ramey hiding from Victor's gang in the gym. He calls the boy over for a talk. Ramey is skeptical. He doesn't believe Rick can do anything about the troublemakers. In fact, he sees Rick as someone just as stuck in this dump as he is, someone who's never getting out. So how could he possibly help anyone else? Raimi runs off, leaving Rick shaken by such a blunt assessment of his role. This encounter rattles Rick. He storms into the teacher's lounge and confronts the staff, who treat their jobs like boring, meaningless routines. They've long given up on trying to drill dialectical materialism or math formulas into the students' heads. Enraged, Rick demands that they return to their classrooms and actually teach as they're supposed to. He then asks for help organizing a school-wide assembly. The teachers don't understand the point and object to the idea. Nevertheless, after class, the students are forced into the auditorium. They're noisy and ignore all calls for silence until Rick starts speaking. Then, for a moment, they fall quiet, curious about what the new principal has to say. Rick announces that from now on, things are going to change. Enough with the chaos. Enough with disrespecting education. Enough with dealing drugs. Enough with bullying the loners. Everything that goes against order is now officially banned. When the students start jeering, Rick reminds them that just as they can't be expelled from Brendale, he can't be fired from it either. So he's not going anywhere, and he's not backing down. Victor rises to his feet. Rick tells him to sit down, but the teen deliberately refuses. Rick then orders Jack to seat him, and the security guard starts down the aisle, but is quickly blocked by Victor's gang. A fight breaks out, and Rick dives in, but all he catches is Victor's smug smile as the gang leader walks right out of the hall. Rick catches up to him in the hallway and still tries to reason with him, inviting him to appear before the school council. He tells Victor he can stay at Brendale if he's willing to follow the rules, attend classes, and do his homework. Victor just laughs. He reminds Rick that this isn't his school, this is Victor's territory. To prove his point, he hands Rick a knife he's been hiding the entire time. Victor walks away. Rick breaks the knife and throws it after him, making it clear the gangster's reign is over. But keeping order proves nearly impossible. The students would rather dance and get high than study. One day, Rick catches a girl named Trina dealing drugs. He flushes her stash down the toilet in front of her. She threatens to tell Victor, but Rick calmly tells her the rules have changed. She can complain to whoever she wants. The next day, Rick recruits additional security from the gym teachers. Under Jack's command, the big guys quickly restore order in the halls, herding students into classrooms. Unaccustomed to such treatment, the teens obey. Rick personally patrols the halls and is pleased by the new calm settling over the school. That same day, history teacher Hillary Orozco finally gets the chance to teach a proper lesson. Rick attends her class and brings along Joe, one of Victor's main allies. Joe curses and threatens Emil, furious that a gang member like Emil dares to participate in class. Emil, however, answers Hillary's questions with surprising competence. Zach joins in on the bullying, but Hillary sharply mocks him, and her sarcasm wins over the rest of the class. Enraged, Zach storms out. Hillary asks Rick not to interfere with her teaching again. By trying to educate the gangsters, he's ruining her lessons for the rest. Later, Rick runs into Victor in an empty hallway. When the boy starts threatening him again, Rick calmly says he's not hiding. If Victor has something planned, he should go ahead and do it. Realizing Rick isn't afraid, Victor storms off in fury. The next day, Rick learns that the girl he caught dealing drugs, Trina, is planning to leave the school. The other teachers also voice their opposition to Rick bringing gang members into their classrooms, pointing out that at least the rest of the students don't carry knives. Still, they admit that the atmosphere in the school has noticeably improved. Some students have even started doing their homework. Although they add, there are still those who pee on the floor. Rick reminds them that they're here to teach kids. That means they don't get to pick and choose who deserves an education. Every student turned away from class undermines the very foundation of the school system. Whether the teachers like it or not, they need to endure everything, even puddles of urine, because it's their job to prove they're stronger, and that what they're doing matters. After delivering his speech, Rick visits Trina at home and discovers she has a small child. She needs money to support him. Trina is determined to quit school, which only interferes with her income. Victor has even found her a new job. Rick urges her to stay. She's doing well academically and clearly has potential. He offers to tutor her in the mornings before classes and leaves, confident she'll listen. The next morning, Trina does show up, but she brings Victor's men with her. Rick hears a commotion outside and sees thugs smashing up his motorcycle. Then they throw a bag over his head and beat him mercilessly, right in front of Victor, who watches it all. Bloodied and bruised, Rick stumbles into the hallway where students and teachers see him. Holding his shattered helmet, he marches to the auto shop where Arturo and his friends work, throws the broken pieces at them, and demands the names of his attackers. It turns out that, though the boys couldn't defend him in time, they're willing to help now, starting by repairing his wrecked motorcycle. Rick then confronts Trina, accusing her of betrayal, that she sold him out for cash, but the girl insists she'll do anything to keep her son from going hungry. It's already happened before. Rick reminds her once again of the chance she has to change her life, and that education is the only way out. He feels a personal responsibility for her, and he won't walk away, no matter how hard she tries to shake off the persistent principle. Later, Rick comes to pick up his motorcycle and finds it completely restored. Painted across the tank in stylish letters is the word principal. Rick thanks the boys and grabs a bat before heading to the spot where Victor usually conducts his business. He ambushes Victor and his clients during a deal, forcing the gang leader to chase him down. Fired up, Victor gets in his car and tries to shoot Rick as he drives, but doesn't realize the chase has led them straight to the school, where students are watching from the windows. Unsure if someone will report him to the police, Victor backs off. Jack scolds Rick afterward. Victor might not have stopped, and they could have ended up scraping his body off the pavement in front of the school. Rick admits it was reckless, but now Victor knows he's serious and ready to fight. Unexpectedly, Jack opens up about his own fear of killing the gang leader. He went to Brendale himself. Once a promising athlete, Jack earned a scholarship and a diploma through sports. But an injury ended his career before it began. With no future in athletics, he came back to where he started, Brendale High, to serve as head of security and help the few kids still trying to escape and become something greater. Listening to his story, Rick realizes he's found a true friend and ally. Later, outside the school, Rick sees Arturo playing ball as usual and strikes up a conversation with him. At the same time, Hillary receives a note from Emil asking to meet, claiming he has something important to tell her. But comparing the handwriting to one of Emil's essays, she realizes someone else wrote it. She's in danger. Hillary begins packing her things, planning to leave as soon as possible. Arturo tells Rick that he's waiting for Ms. Orozco. He respects her a lot. Just then, Hillary exits her classroom, but a masked figure appears in front of her. She tries to flee, runs back to the room, and locks the door. But there's another entrance she doesn't reach in time. The attacker bursts in. Meanwhile, Rick is joking with Arturo, telling him to go check on the teacher who's taking so long, unaware that Hillary is smashing the window with a chair. Rick races into the school on his motorcycle and speeds toward her classroom. Inside, Hillary is being brutally beaten. Her attacker prepares to take advantage of her weakened state. He rips off his mask, and it's White Zach. He wants revenge for being humiliated in class. Rick arrives just in time. He pulls the attacker away from the teacher and beats the teenage thug before handing him over to the police. Hillary is rushed to the hospital. Afterward, Rick starts rereading student essays and comes across a piece written by a boy named Ramey. He's struck by the student's thoughts and ambitions. Ramey wants to build a future for himself, even though he understands how hard it is to escape from the bottom. Later, Jack informs Rick that Hillary has a broken wrist and serious bruising, so she won't be returning to work anytime soon. White Zach, meanwhile, is set to face trial in the near future. Rick stops Ramey in the hallway and asks him to continue his essay, saying it was an excellent piece. The boy lights up and walks away encouraged. That same day, Rick receives his first resignation letter from a teacher who no longer wants to risk his health and life in a school that's become even more dangerous since Rick's arrival. Suddenly, Rick hears loud shouting from Hillary's classroom. When he rushes over, he finds a fight in progress. Arturo has learned about the note supposedly from Emil and refuses to let it go unpunished. Despite Emil's physical advantage, the smaller boy launches the first attack without explaining why he's hitting his classmate. Rick breaks up the fight and takes on Hillary's teaching duties himself. He doesn't want the class to fall behind. Emil answers the questions fairly well, but for his behavior, Rick takes him to the office and orders him to do push-ups while questioning him about the note and Hillary's assault. At that moment, Arturo also comes in. Rick has discovered that he still writes in Spanish in his notebook. The boy explains that his written English is poor and that Hillary had been tutoring him privately, even bringing him children's books from home. Rick says he'll continue those lessons. Emil, overhearing Arturo's broken English, laughs at him, but Rick challenges Emil to read the same lines out loud. It turns out Emil is an excellent reader. He admits his mother taught him and that he's always craved knowledge. Rick praises him. When Emil leaves, Arturo tells Rick that Emil, after learning what happened to Hillary, left Victor's gang. Rick catches up to Emil and speaks with him like a friend. Emil admits that he was asked to write the note to Hillary, but refused. Victor ended up writing it himself. Emil says he isn't afraid of the gang, but when he's with them, he feels powerful, and he likes that feeling. Rick calls him a coward and reminds him that no one in that gang ends up well. Emil, on the other hand, has a real shot. He's smart. Before leaving, Emil warns Rick to be careful and promises to bring a 3-page essay the next day. He shakes Rick's hand, just as Victor, loitering nearby, sees it happen. Rick goes to visit Hillary. She's happy to hear that he's continuing Arturo's lessons. Rick apologizes, saying he could have checked the classroom sooner and prevented the attack. Hillary reminds him that he saved her and then invites him over for dinner. Rick enthusiastically accepts. That same day, Rick returns to school to do a building check. Suddenly, right in front of him, someone throws Emil, tied by his legs, off the school roof. Rick rushes to help and calls for assistance. Emil is taken to the hospital. The event hits Rick hard. He blames himself. In the hospital room, thinking Emil is unconscious, Rick apologizes and admits he's exhausted and wants to give up, but Emil suddenly speaks. He calls Rick a coward and throws the same mocking words back at him that Rick once used. Then he assures him he fought to the end. Rick hurries to the school cafeteria where he finds Victor. The gang leader mocks him, suggesting Rick try hanging upside down like Emil. Suddenly, Rick snaps. He attacks Victor, shoving leftover food into his mouth, slamming him against the wall, and vowing to find evidence that will put him in prison. Victor is shaken but gives Rick an ultimatum. If he shows up to school tomorrow, he'll die. Rick just smiles and walks away proudly, while Victor rages in front of the other students, loudly threatening the principal with death. But once Rick is gone, Victor realizes something's changed. The people around him no longer look at him the same way. That day, Rick is told that Zach never showed up for his court hearing. If even the police can't handle these criminals, Victor's threat is very real. Jack urges Rick to call in sick and stay home, but when Rick refuses, Jack promises he'll be at school too. Even the janitor comes to Rick's office to shake his hand and wish him good luck. Late that evening, Hillary comes to Rick's house to let him know she's transferring to another school. Rick supports her decision and says goodbye. The next morning, he shows up to work as usual, while everyone around him watches in awe, admiring his courage. Later, he teaches Hillary's history class and praises Trina for a well-thought-out answer. When the classes end, the students head outside, but no one's in a hurry to leave. Everyone senses that the final showdown is coming. At that moment, Rick is reading with Arturo when Hillary suddenly appears in the doorway. Happy to see the lessons continuing, she tells him she's not transferring after all. She points out that the students haven't gone home. Looking out the window, Rick, concerned for Hillary's safety, asks Arturo to walk her to her car. The boy agrees, unaware that Zach is sneaking back onto the school grounds. After the teacher drives off, Arturo returns to the building. Jack informs Rick that the two of them are the only ones left inside and asks what the plan is. Rick only cracks a joke while scanning the perimeter with binoculars, watching for Victor's gang, but the grounds are still, for now. Just as Jack suggests heading home, Victor and his crew appear at the gates. Rick watches as Victor Duncan and his gang enter the school building. He knows there's only one thing left to do: fight. Jack rushes off to chain the doors and call the police, but in the hallway he hears footsteps. Someone else is still inside. He follows the sound. While Rick spots Joe armed with a knife, Joe is behaving strangely, almost as if he's trying to lure Rick deeper into the building. Grabbing a baseball bat, Rick gives chase while also trying to locate Jack, who doesn't respond because he's been ambushed. One of Victor's henchmen locks him inside a storage closet. Rick follows Joe through the corridors until they end up in the locker room showers. Victor soon arrives. Realizing he's surrounded, Rick hides, managing to stay out of sight in the stalls for a while. The gang turns on the hot water and the lights, making it harder for Rick to remain hidden. Then they start slamming stall doors, trying to break his nerve. Meanwhile, Jack tries to break out of the supply closet. Back in the showers, Rick is caught. Victor holds him at gunpoint and orders Joe to stab him. At that exact moment, Jack smashes a window, escapes the closet, and starts fighting one of the gang members. Joe, however, refuses to carry out the order. He doesn't want to go down for murder, and he regrets what happened to Emil. Plus, the police are digging into the case, and if the truth comes out, they'll all end up in prison. Joe isn't looking to make it worse. Victor responds by executing Joe with a bullet to the head. Then he prepares to shoot Rick, but Jack throws another gang member down the stairs and races toward the sound of gunfire. Just then, Arturo leaps out of a shower stall and smashes Victor with a bat. Victor drops the gun but lunges at Rick, landing several blows. Out in the hallway, Jack runs into Zach, but without hesitation, throws him out the window. He then rushes to help Rick, who has recovered and begins beating Victor. Jack watches proudly as Rick pounds Victor, kicking him all the way to the school entrance. Realizing defeat is inevitable, Victor begs for mercy, but Rick tosses him outside the school doors to the sound of students cheering. Still, some of Victor's loyal followers stand at the gates, ready to start a brawl, but Rick's shout quickly restores order. Everyone now knows who's in charge. The police arrive and take Victor into custody. Rick tells Jack he's decided to stay. Jack says he'll stay too. Rick turns to the students and declares that he is their principal, then rides off from the schoolyard. The film is compelling both as a story and as a character-driven drama. It offers a powerful narrative with engaging characters and strong performances. The main character presents the image of an ordinary good man who proves that it's possible to take control and make a difference. His journey serves as a reminder that no matter how hard life hits you, it's vital to stand by your beliefs until the very end.